Uh-huh. I suspect there might be a small number of people doing video.
Okay, I just wasn't sure. It looks like it's an option. Okay.
Yeah,
Are
it
you?
is.
I was gonna say, are you in your pajamas or something? And
Nope.
It's probably dressed up to the nines and we're not seeing it, darn it.
I know. Well, see, I was in my pajamas until about 5 minutes ago. So.
I mean, I could lie about it, but I think that would be lacking in integrity.
Hey, Paul, this is Renee. I have a
Sorry, I was getting the YouTube stream going.
I have a question for
They're
you.
over there on
Yes.
In the game
by the
room
fridge.
tonight, do I have to have my own people to like be watching the chat and stuff like that, or will there be people in there?
Thanks.
I'll show up.
Okay. Right. Well, I have Christina doing part of it, but I just
I'll help too.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Sure.
Thomas has joined.
You know, Renee, how am I supposed to know what time your thing is tonight? It doesn't have a time.
Jesus, 7:30. It says it.
So that's for all of the things that are underneath 7:30
There's like
then.
four different rooms you can go to or something like that.
Oh, okay. That's what I had a feeling that's what it was, but I just wanted to double check and make sure.
And it's gonna be fun.
Oh, I can't wait.
Name that
I'm
This is
excited.
unmuted. This is muted, right?
Hello, this is Terry Mcdonald from California, and thanks so much for inviting California to join this particular section here. And hello, Melissa.
Hi, who is that?
Terry Mcdonald.
Hi, oh, hey, Terry. Oh my gosh.
How are
How's
you?
it going?
Everything's good. I'm going to put myself on mute though, because I know other people are joining.
Yeah.
Good
all right.
afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon, everyone. We're going to let some folks 160 pop in here. I'm Kevin Worley. We're going to give it another 2 or 3 minutes and we'll get started. We have a few announcements. Marianne, I need to make sure you're here and unmuted, first of all.
I am here. Am I unmuted?
You would be. There's some funky hiss. What's that all about? Woo. I don't know if you guys hear that. It's like, shh. Oh, I know. It's a beautiful waterfall. That's what I'll imagine it is.
Oh, you know what? I apologize. My dishwasher, this is Melissa. My dishwasher is running in the background. I will mute myself since my presentation isn't for a little while. So
that could be it.
Sorry about that.
It could be it, or just Curtis Chung's very excited. I mean, who knows?
You don't know in life.
It's my tinnitus leaking over into the Zoom cloud.
And that's really a real thing. Am I coming through
All
clear?
right. I think we'll go ahead and get started. I know that we are on YouTube Live, and you can text your friends and Facebook your friends, and everybody who's not supposed to be unmuted should mute themselves, please. Otherwise, Paul and Curtis will make sure you do it. There is a funky hiss still, but that might be on my end, so we'll just move forward. Welcome. And as I say, if you want to Facebook or text or email your friends and tell them about this great seminar that Marianne is going to host for us, do that. Don't forget that we are the doggers in the NFBCO Comcast 6.dash. That's who we have a team going. Some of our members are in different teams, but if you want to take part, you still have until the 8th to get a bunch of miles in, do a virtual 5K, get you and your puppy out there and get a little, it's nice down here today, a little breezy here in Colorado Springs, right outside of my pod. So it's a little breezy, but we still got out and did 2 miles early this morning, me and the Wonder Shepherd from Fidelco. If you I want to make sure that Paul or Raul, one of you two, make any national announcements that you might have. I don't know. Let's make sure we get that done, Marianne, so folks will know exactly what might be happening in terms of calendar requests and Facebook and upcoming events and that kind of thing. I do also want to commend to everybody the 5:30 opening ceremonies tonight. And you're going to love it with Jessica and Maureen and Scott for sure. And I want to see how many voices in our history you'll be able to recognize some of these little snippets that you all are going to just really, they're going to make you cry and they're going to make you laugh. We've got some great talent. Okay, Marianne, I think that's all I have to get us started. You put together, you and the committee, you can say who that is if you want, have put together a solid seminar, and I'm going to turn it over to the president of the Boulder chapter and treasurer of QuagDo, because QuagDo cares, to Marianne Mayorelli.
Thank you so much, Kevin. And as Kevin said, I am the treasurer, so I will be putting the link to the COAG-DO dues page for anyone who would like to join COAG-DO. We would love to have you. I will drop this in the chat in a little bit, but I'll also read it out because I would be remiss if I didn't. Nice and easy. https://tinyurl.com/COAGDO-dues. That's just spelled COAGDUDUES/ We try to make some things as reasonably easy as we can, but it'll also be in the chat later on in case anyone's here that would like to join us and join the doggers and all such other cool things that we do. But today we are fortunate to have all of you joining us, whether it's in the actual Zoom room or on YouTube, and we have an amazing seminar for today. My dog is super excited about the things we're going to do, and I hope all of your animals will be too. We are going to start out with a T-Touch session, and then we will be having our second session will be on the rights and responsibilities and care of your guide dog. To lead us in a T-Touch section to begin with is Courtney Kerman. She is the owner of Tender Hands Animal Training. She has dedicated her life to improving the lives of pets and their people. As a dog trainer, she enjoys helping owners form deeper relationships with their dogs and improve the human-animal bond. Her passion, her passion and affinity for animals was present from a very early age. Courtney has been studying dog obedience since 2006 when a young husky named Bailey entered her life. I love huskies. Courtney worked as dog trainer for PetSmart before hold on a second, my screen just got completely. She worked for PetSmart before breaking out on her own and discovering the powerful benefits of the Tellington Touch method, which many of us have not had a chance to learn. So we're very excited. T-Touch was the missing link that Courtney felt was needed to truly help pets and their people. Courtney believes in a positive and gentle approach to pet training and will build a relationship of trust and respect between animals and the people they share their lives with. Please help me welcome Courtney, and may all of our animals and us as humans be better off for her teaching. She will be hosting questions and answers at the end of her session. Thank you, Courtney.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate your inviting me here and being a part of this today. So I just I'm gonna sort of speed through things since we have limited time, and then like you said, we'll have a question and answer at the end. So if you do have questions, like feel free to jot them down or make a note so that it's fresh in your mind for the end of the session. So I want to first give you a real brief explanation and history about T-Touch for those of you who have never heard of it. T-Touch started in the horse world about 40 years ago. So it's been around for a really long time. It was created by a woman named Linda Tellington Jones, and we now have practitioners in 32 different countries. So it's truly taught all over the world. I'm often asked if it's voodoo or if there's real science behind it. And I assure you, there is definitely science behind it. We have over 40 years of research and case studies, and TTouch.com, the kind of home website, has a lot of the research studies on their website if you guys are interested in kind of looking more into that. TTouch has their own veterinary advisory board, and it's even taught in some of the vet schools in Germany and Austria. So it's not hugely well known and popular in the States, but it is in many other countries. So there is definitely science behind it, and it is not voodoo or energy work. However, I do think our personal energy has a lot to do with working with our animals. So if you're stressed or tense, or you've had a bad day, especially with COVID and the pandemic and lockdowns, I think all of us run a little more tense these days, just because we're constantly having to adapt and change, and there's new rules and all these things. So if you're having a really tough day or a tough moment, it's just not the appropriate time to work with your pets. I usually will tell people, like, go have a coffee, listen to some music, take a break, whatever you need to do to kind of reset yourself and feel good in your body before working on your dogs. So just because it's not necessarily energy work like Reiki or some other methods out there, I do feel that your energy can really translate to your dogs. So it's best to be in a relaxed and positive state of mind before working with them. So what the heck is T-Touch? On a really basic level, it's just a really gentle and positive approach to working with animals. It's very respectful. So we give our animals a lot of choice when we're doing T-Touch. Sometimes I will say that might be a 6-foot choice if they're on the end of a 6-foot lead, but I'm still giving animals a lot of choice when I'm working with them. And that's going to help increase that trust and that relationship you have with your pet. T-Touch incorporates different body work. Today, we're going to focus more on specific touches, but it focuses on body work, different body wraps, as well as movement exercises. And all these things help play a role in calming the nervous system, increasing oxytocin, which is more of a feel-good hormone. There is an author by the name of Bruce Lipton, and he wrote a book called The Honeymoon Effect. And in that book, he talks about oxytocin being the trust hormone. So if we can help calm our dogs down, like throughout their entire body, throughout their nervous system, we can really help bring them into a better state of mind to think and learn. So the other things I'm working on when I'm doing T-Touch is really building confidence. A lot of the dogs who are working dogs, they got there because they have confidence for the most part. And they are, generally speaking, grounded. And that's what got them far in their career. However, a lot of us have careers and we all have setbacks, or we all have days we don't feel great. So even if you have a dog who's really confident, really grounded, kind of bulletproof and bomb-proof, everyone has their bad day. So we want to make sure our pets are feeling the best they can possibly feel, especially if they're working dogs. We need them to be able to perform their best. So T-Touch can truly help any dog, whether you are a puppy raiser and have an 8-week-old dog at home, or an adult working dog, or a dog in retirement. It can really benefit any and all stages of life. But today I'm going to focus more on our working dogs, or working guide dogs who are actively engaged in work every day. So what are my goals of T-Touch? My goals when I'm working with a dog is to help them just become overall more balanced. So what I mean by balanced is physical balance, emotional balance, and mental balance. So physical balance is how they feel in their body. Do they feel good? Are they weighting themselves evenly, or do they favor one side and not put all their weight on the other side? Are they feeling the best they can in their body? So an example I like to think of is if you've ever thrown your back out, or you've had the flu, or your whole body just aches, and your body is not what it normally is. It's not working at full capacity. So you're achy, you don't feel good, your threshold is lower, so things irritate you a little more, and somebody bumps into you. You're way more likely to react at that than to just kind of move on or not really notice, because you don't feel good. So you're more likely to snap at that person and say, hey, watch where you're going, slow down, pay attention, I'm standing here. Versus if you just had finished a spa weekend and you got out of yoga class and you're feeling amazing and relaxed, and someone bumps into you, you might not even notice. You're not so aware because you feel good. So we want our dogs to feel the best they can feel so that they can handle these outside stressors better and not react to them. So emotional balance, equally as important. When I think of our own emotional balance, I like to think of, let's say you have an appointment and your alarm didn't go off. So you slept in, you wake up, you rush to get ready, you realize you're out of coffee, your Uber is late, then you get to every single red light in town and you're going to barely make it on time. So you're rushing, and then someone doesn't hold the elevator for you or cuts you off in line or whatever it may be. Again, you're more likely to react at that scenario and that situation because you're stressed, you're rushed, you're frustrated, you're more tense, and you just aren't able to deal with these triggers. Versus had you gotten up early, everything went beautifully, your partner surprised you with a latte in bed, and you got to your appointment 15 minutes early. If someone cuts you off, you might not even notice or care because it's not a problem. You have plenty of time to spare. So with our dogs, we want them to feel as emotionally balanced as they can so that they don't mind when things happen around them, when another dog stares at them or gets too close or in their face, or a kid runs up screaming. We want our dogs to feel good in their bodies physically and emotionally so they can deal with these things in life. And then there's mental balance, that ability to focus and think and learn. If you've ever been at work on a Friday before vacation, that day you might not be as productive because you're staring at that clock and you're thinking 5 hours left until I'm on vacation. Okay, now I have 3 more hours left to work before I can go home. Okay, 1 more hour and then I'm free. You're just not in it. You're not in the game because you're distracted. Our dogs get distracted as well. And it often comes across as people telling me their dog is stubborn or jealous or whatever it may be that day. They know the command, but they don't want to do it. It could be that they are just distracted in their environment. They're not in the best state of mind to think and learn and focus and pay attention. So if we're using T-Touch and we can help create more balance overall, we have a dog that can work with us and listen to us and just pay more attention to our needs, and we're paying more attention to their needs, and it's just a better relationship and a better outcome. My other main focus when I'm doing T-Touch is to help release tension in the body. So sometimes I'll see tension in a dog and it could be something severe like osteoarthritis or an internal injury or cancer or things like that, but not every time. So just because you find tension in your dog, I don't want you to have massive red flags and freak out. It's not always that. It's not always that. If you are concerned, absolutely take your dog in for a vet visit and rule out health issues. But oftentimes we carry tension in our bodies. Some people carry tension in their shoulders, their back, their feet, their head. We get tension headaches. So it's really normal and common for creatures to carry tension, except when it's our dog, they can't tell us. They can't say like, my head's pounding today, or my shoulders are just a little tweaked. I also think dogs are master disguisers when it comes to pain and discomfort. Half the time you never know anything's wrong until it's really, really bad. So my goals are to release tension, but how do you know if your dog even has any? I look for a lot of little tiny signals, which could be anything from a change in coat pattern. Maybe you have a dog with this like beautiful silky coat, but then in one area, the texture is a little rough, or maybe there's some cowlicks that can't really explain themselves. I've even seen poodles, for example, where I've had a black poodle, but in certain lighting, I could see just sort of like a saddle, a variation in color over his back. And it turns out he carried a lot of tension in his spine. So there's little things in their coat you can kind of pay attention to that could be signs of tension. Hi, I have a hound dog next to me checking in. Another thing I look for is when I'm putting equipment on a dog. So my older dog, for example, when I put her harness on, she'll stiffen. Her tail will get really stiff and she'll kind of hold her breath. And I can get her harness on. And if anybody saw her on a walk or out in a park or wherever, you would have no clue this dog had tension. She's extremely athletic. She's extremely fit. If you saw her running free in the mountain, you would have zero clue this dog has any discomfort. But she does, she just hides it really well and she's in good shape. So it's not that it impedes her where she can't do things. It's just, I know she has areas of more discomfort as she's getting older and aging. So it's little things like that. Maybe you to call your dog to come and they don't come all the way. They stop like 2 feet from you so that you can't get your hands on them. Maybe you have a dog who every time you pet them, they lick or they shake off afterwards. Another common thing I see is, again, dogs are just these master manipulators. Some dogs, like those dogs that love their butt scratched. That may be true. They may really enjoy having their butt scratched, but they also may be hiding their tension on the other end. Or vice versa. Maybe you have a dog who always puts their head in in your lap and they're just like, oh, pet me, look how adorable I am, love on me, but don't touch my hips. Every time you get toward my hind end, I'm going to sit down so you can't touch my hips because they're a little sore. So there's tons and tons of little tiny indicators that show a dog might be carrying tension that I'm looking for. So it's not always a big neon sign. Sometimes it is, but not always. It's usually really, really small. And you, as the pet owner, know your dog better than anybody. So if you ever have a gut feeling and you just are pretty sure something is going on and you take your dog to the vet and the vet says they're fine, get a second opinion. Maybe find a vet who specializes in pain management or things like that to get to the bottom of it. So that's kind of my overall little mini intro into T-Touch before I get us kind of moving, but I wanted to give you guys a little background. So if you are in a position where you can stand up, I'm going to stand up. For those of you who are watching your video, I am going to do the best I can to stay in my screen, but if you don't see me or can't see me well, just feel free to shout out. But if you're in a position where you're able and comfortable to stand up, please do so. If not, you can remain seated for this activity. Either works, but if you stand up, you'll kind of get a little more from it. So I want everybody to stand up if you are and just shake off like shake your shoulders out, shake your arms out, wiggle your knees back and forth. Just kind of get rid of that tension you might be having. And I want you to sort of imagine that your feet are in mud, like at the beach. You're kind of in that squishy mud where the water sort of the tide kind of comes up, so that you're really grounded. Your feet are kind of sinking into the earth. You're evenly placed. So just kind of take note. Are you putting more of your weight on one hip versus the other? I want you to make sure you're balanced. And I want you to take some deep breaths into your diaphragm. So not just into your lungs, but really into your whole body. So we're going to inhale and exhale and kind of wiggle out any tension. Do that a few more times. Sort of shake out. Like I said, really, really make sure you're inhaling all the way into your diaphragm and then exhaling all the way. Okay. So I hope everybody's feeling a little loose and relaxed. So I want you to place one hand on your chest. If you're wearing like a really puffy jacket, it helps to unzip it so you can get a little closer connection. But I want one hand on your chest, and it can be cupped a little bit, but for the most part, your whole hand is placed flat on your chest. And I want you to place your other hand on top of that. So both hands are kind of nested on top of each other on top of your chest. And I want you to just move your hand back and forth, side to side, up and down, enough that you feel your skin moving as well. So I don't want you we're not sliding over our clothes. We're making enough connection that you can really feel your skin kind of move around. So that might only be an inch or so in each direction. We're not trying to like overly stretch, but I just want you to be aware of that connection. So now I want you to picture a clock face on your chest. So 6 o'clock would be down, 12 o'clock would be up, and then we have 3 and 6 on each side. So we're going to be moving our skin in a whole circle and a little bit up. So we're going clockwise. So we're going from 6 o'clock around the clock back to 6 and up to 9. So it's this whole circle and a little bit up. So 6 o'clock, 9. And then you pause for a moment. And then we're going to go 6 o'clock, 9 and pause. So you can change that tempo. You could do a fast circle and pause. You could do a slower circle and pause. Generally, when I'm working with most dogs, I'm doing a 2-second circle. So I'm just in my head going 6 o'clock, 9. That's about 2 seconds. So that's your first T-touch. It's called a heart hug. You're welcome to sit down now. Now that we kind of got a little practice in, maybe you noticed you're holding your breath a little. Sometimes as you're focusing and doing that touch, you'll hold your breath because you're so focused on what you're doing. So you can sit down, relax, try that again, and make sure you're really breathing this time. So I'm going to be quiet for a moment so everyone can kind of focus. Okay. So when I'm working on dogs or horses or pigs or goats, whatever, or people, the faster you do your circle, the more kind of energizing it is. So if I'm working on a senior dog, let's say, and they're stiff in the morning, it's harder for them to get up, I might do faster circles. If I'm working on a dog who's super amped and insane, you think, okay, let's do slower circles, but they're usually not going to stand still long enough for you to get that slow circle. So sometimes I'll even start with a faster circle and then gradually slow it down so that you're kind of meeting their energy and then bringing it down a little bit. You can also change the pressure. So if you notice when you're moving the skin on your chest, it doesn't take a lot of pressure. You're not pushing that hard to get that skin to move. So when you're doing T-touch, That's what you're focusing on, is moving that skin. So we're not doing a massage. We're not working on a muscular level. We're working on a skin level. But if you're not making enough connection, you're just sliding over the skin. So you really want to make sure you're getting their skin to move with you. If you're working on a dog like a bloodhound, you could get like a frisbee size circle because there's so much extra skin. You don't necessarily need to. You can still do a little tiny circle. But if you're working on a really, like, let's say you have a really muscular German Shepherd who's got like super buff legs and really tight muscles, you're not going to get that skin to move as much because it's just a little tighter in that area. So the size of your circle will change depending where you're working, and how that skin is on that particular dog. And you can change that pressure and that tempo. So every dog is different. Some dogs might appreciate a little heavier touch because a light touch might be too tickly. Or some dogs might have some pain in a certain area. So a heavy touch in that particular area might not be well accepted. So you would want to do a lighter touch. It really changes. So that's where I talk about animals having a lot of choice. I can change things and manipulate things so that that dog finds it more accepting and enjoys it more. They can't tell me, oh, I like this or I don't like this. So I'm really trying to be a really good observer and pick up information and just see what I think they are accepting more so than other touches. So you have some wiggle room. So now I want everybody to practice again that same circular touch, that 6 o'clock, 6 o'clock, 9. So it's a whole clockwise circle and a little bit up. So I want you to practice on your forearm. So if you have long sleeves on, it helps to roll your sleeves up if you can. But I want you to relax your arm on a surface. So maybe you have your arm resting on your desk or on your armrest or your lap, but I want your arm to be 100% relaxed. So you're not using your muscles to hold it up. So with your other hand on your forearm, you're going to just use your fingers because your whole hand is too big. So I use either, when I'm working on my forearm, I'm using either the top pads of my section of my fingers, so like between the tip of my finger and that first knuckle bend, or the tip of my finger to my middle knuckle bend. So we're just using the pads, and I rest the pads of my fingers on my arm, and my thumb is making a connection, but it's not moving. So my thumb is kind of supporting the weight of my hand and keeping my hands steady and comfortable. And then with my fingers, my finger pads, I'm going to do that circle. So that's 6 o'clock, 6 o'clock, 9, and pause. That pause is really, really important because when you pause, that's when the brain has a chance to receive the information. So the brain is going, oh, okay, I noticed that. Now I'm going to send information back to that part of the body and help that area. So I want you to practice on your arm different texture or different pressures, sorry. So you can rest your fingers, and I want you to try moving your skin around in that circular pattern with as little pressure as you can. So that's the same amount of pressure you would need to move your eyelid above your eyeball. So if you were to close your eyes and move your eyelid skin back and forth, it doesn't take a lot of pressure. So it's really, really light, and you can still get that skin to move in a circle. Then I want you to try a circle where you're kind of sponging your fingers down just a little bit. You're still not doing a deep tissue massage, but your hand is resting. So it's the weight of your hand. And then you just kind of sponge down a little bit into your skin and make that circle. That's sort of the most common pressure I use with a dog, anywhere from that really light pressure to just the weight of my hand sponged down a little bit. I hope that is making sense. It's hard. I normally am in person going around a room touching people's arms to give them a better sense of that. But I just want you to be aware that it doesn't take much pressure to move skin and that you're not sliding over the skin. You're really making a connection. So hopefully that is making sense for people. So I want to work on a stuffed dog since my current dog is passed out. And for the sake of time, my stuffed dog will stay in front of a camera. So when I'm working on a dog, hi, Greta-May. So when I'm working on a dog, I want to make sure they are in a position to move away if they want to. So an open space in a room, I don't want to work them between like a coffee table and a couch because they can feel trapped. So I really want them to have a lot of space where they can make a choice. The other thing I want to do is do a few touches and then take my hands off. So I'm giving them, again, a really clear choice. Like if you want to stay for more, great. But if you want to leave, you have that option. So that, again, is going to increase that trust and that relationship. So when I start on a dog, I typically want to start where they feel comfortable and safe. On most dogs, that's the chest or shoulders. A lot of dogs are pretty comfortable with people touching them around their shoulders. So in this case, I'm going to place one hand on the dog's chest just so I have a connection. So I'm not just kind of floating here in space. And my other hand is going to work on the dog. So in my case, I have my left hand on the dog's chest, my right hand on the dog's shoulder. So my thumb is resting to support my hand. And I'm going to do one circular touch on his shoulder and then slide down the back a little bit. I kind of imagine Christmas tree lights all over a dog. So everywhere there's a light bulb, I'll do a touch and then slide down the strand, do another touch. Slide down the strand, do another touch. So I might do 2 to 4 touches and then take my hands off and see how that dog responds. Maybe they lean in, maybe they shift their body a little bit. So this dog is staying with me because he's so well behaved. So I'm going to do it again and just move a little bit, move my hand a little bit and do that same pattern in a slightly different area. So I pick a spot to start around his neck. I do a circular touch. I slide down the back, do a circular touch, slide down the back. When you're working on a dog, you want to make sure you are comfortable. So you're not kinked or hunched over in an awkward position. Make sure you position yourself that you feel good and that you're not tense and kind of feeding that into them. So if you need to move on the other side or have your dog kind of move around so that you're not kinking your wrists in order to work on a dog. So if I want to work on the side of the dog that's closer to me without kinking my wrist, I can use the back of my hand or the back of my fingers or the back of my hand. You can really adjust it. But I can do these circular touches without having to kink my wrist to get on the other side. Again, it's really important to take your hands off and give your dog that super, super clear choice of being able to leave or come back. And you can really play around with what part of your hands you're using. There's so many different types of T-touches, but that circular pattern is the premise of a lot of them. So whether you're using the tips of your fingers, your entire hand, like we did on our chest, the pads of our fingers, you can really play with it and play with the tempo and play with the pressure and see what your dog likes and where they seem to enjoy it. I hope that helps. I know this is like a really rushed T-Touch session. So I hope I gave you some information, but I want to leave some time for questions.
Thank you so much, Courtney. We can probably take one or two quick ones. And if you are amenable to it, when we are able to do an in-person session again, God willing, either next year or one of our specifically geared guide dog seminars, we would love to have you back for an in-person longer T-Touch session as well.
Absolutely. And you're all are welcome to email me. My email's on my website, tenderhandsanimaltraining.com. But you're welcome to email me if you have like more specific questions or you want to do a phone consult or anything like that.
And your handouts have gone out to the COAGDU listserv and also to Colorado Talk.
Oh, perfect.
So,
wonderful.
So there are ways to get in touch with you, and your handout and your brochure are both there.
Great.
Does anyone have any questions for Courtney? If so, you can unmute yourself. Everybody has their own unmute privileges right now. You can do your Alt-A, your Command-Shift-A, I believe it is, your *6 on your phone. If you have a question.
Jody.
Go ahead, Jody.
Thank you. I may have missed it, Courtney, but did you go over any T-Touch for the ears on dogs?
I did not, just because of limited time.
Sure.
Do you have a specific question or just how to do it, or what is your question?
I mean, just tips and tricks. I know my girl specifically doesn't enjoy it a lot. Like you said, I always give her the choice. So I've noticed she just doesn't care, but the school I went to had talked about ears. So just wondering if there were any tips and tricks.
So the ears have a great connection to respiratory, heart rate, reproduction, all this stuff. So the ears are great to work on. If you have a dog who does not seem to super appreciate it, but has floppy ears like a lab, sometimes it helps to do the touches against their body versus like holding up their ears or manipulating their ears more. So just going kind of from the top of the head, sliding down the ear against their neck. If I'm working on a dog like a German Shepherd, I want to move with the natural configuration of the ear. So if I have a dog who seems really kind of weird about that, I might start with just doing T-touches on their neck and head and around the base of the ear. You can even try putting a mitten on or like a sock over your hand or something. So there's less concern about you grabbing their ear or like really holding their ear. That sometimes helps. Or if you have a dog who loves toys, like they have squeaky toys or whatever, and you're sort of playing, you can take a toy or a sponge or things like that, that's just a soft consistency, and rub over their ears with that. So again, you're taking that threat away of possibly being grabbed, and still able to give them an experience of having their ears worked on in a very different, less threatening way.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Sure.
This is Kevin. You know, we could do some other presentations with you. We should talk about collaborations and partnerships. There seems to be interest in this topic for those of us who work our dogs pretty hard. And I think also during pandemic, Marianne, you know, there's lots of things that recommend us to really look at a variety of strategies, you know, because before this, we knew we get up in the morning, we can do this, we do that, we do everything's changed. So to the extent that we can find strategies to engage the dog, I would think, so we'll talk about doing some other stuff in the future with you.
I love that. I would love that. And we can do kind of more specifics on, there's so many different things.
We will definitely be in touch, and we will do much more. And thank you so much for bringing an intro to T-Touch to us.
Well, I appreciate the invite. I appreciate it so much. Thank you again. And I would love to offer my services more so in the future.
Thank you so much.
Woohoo!
We will take you up on that.
Great. I appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Feel free to hang around. By the way, feel free to hang around. We're going to get into the whole guide dog, service dog, handler with regard to rights and responsibilities. So you might learn from that as well.
Great. Thank you. I hope you guys have a wonderful day.
You too.
Thanks.
And as we are transitioning into our next segment, I did notice that our National Association of Guide Dog Users President, Raul Gallegos, is with us, and I would like to invite him to unmute and share notes from the national level. Let us know if there's anything we should be paying attention to and updates from our newest president.
Thank you for that, and hello everybody, and thank you for having me on. And I've been listening, for quite a while now, while doing stuff for our Texas affiliate. So we're busy everywhere in the Federation, that's for sure. So my name is Raul Gallegos, and I am actually originally from Denver, Colorado. So I do consider Colorado my first home, even though I'm in Texas now. So hello to everybody. So I was elected president of the National Association of Guide Dog Users earlier this year at our national convention, and it has been a wonderful thing. We've got lots of work going on. Prior to that, I was vice president for a couple of years, and so I am not new to the national division. And so a few of the things that we're doing, I'd like to just go ahead and get those shared with everyone in case you're not aware. The first thing is our public calendar of events. And so I fully believe that in today's times, especially with so many Zoom meetings and Teams meetings and all kinds of meetings that are going on, that it's sort of like what the government says, if it's not written down, it's not happening. And so I've created a NAGDU calendar that people can subscribe to. And it's real easy from a phone or whether it's an iPhone or an Android, you tap on a link and it subscribes you, and it's there. And in fact, the meeting information for today, I got by looking at my calendar where it was there already. It was conveniently there, thanks to Paul, who put it up there. And so it has the Zoom link and all that. And so if you are interested in subscribing to that, please contact me or contact Paul Sandoval. One of us will be able to get you that link. You can write the entire board for the National Association of Guide Dog Users by emailing board@nagdu.org, or you can write me directly by emailing president@nagdu.org, and I'll be happy to assist with any of that. So what kinds of stuff do we put on the calendar? Well, we are happy to put any sort of events that are guide dog user related, specifically if it has to do with the National Federation of the Blind. So any of the events that Colorado Association of Guide Dog Users is holding, or California or Utah, et cetera, we will be happy to put those on there. They don't have to necessarily be business meetings. We're all about having fun as well when we have to. I mean, we get work and stuff done, but we also like to have fun. So, for example, the NAGDU, with NAGDU, every other Saturday we host a social get together. We call it the Yappy Hour, and so it's literally a just come and go as you please, sort of like a happy hour, but Yappy Hour, twist on words. And we don't really talk about anything too serious, but we do have lively and respectful discussion about all things, whether they're guide dog user related or not. And so that certainly is available, and the information to connect is on the calendar. But we are hosting our next one that's coming up this Saturday, and it's going to be at 1 o'clock Mountain Time. And we usually hang out for about 2 hours or so. We've been known to go for about 3.5 hours, but Saturdays are precious, and so we try to not take up too much of everybody's time. So those are the kinds of stuff you'll find.
Hey, Raul. Hey.
Yeah.
Now, this Saturday afternoon, these guys will be in convention.
This is true. Yes.
Just letting you know, my brother.
Do not be promoting something
Yeah,
other
yeah,
than the
just letting you
Saturday
know, we don't
afternoon
need that
event.
Don't
competition
show
from
up.
the big
Don't
guys,
show
you
up
know?
this Saturday. Thank you. Thank you. Yes.
We're excluding
We're
Colorado
excluding
people.
Colorado.
Thank
Um,
you.
So
And all
yes,
those
please.
other people who want to be in Colorado.
Yes. However, 2 Saturdays from this Saturday, please come join us. So yeah, definitely. Thank you for that. And then on the last Sunday of every month at, I'm doing my time calculations, 6 p.m. Mountain Time, we have our board meetings, which everyone is welcome to join. And again, that information will be found there on the calendar. So those are kind of how, how we meet, where we meet, and how we get that information. Of course, we always share that information on the various different email lists. And so you can always get that information there in case you're not a calendar person. And so one of the other things that I'd like to share, and I know time is precious, so please cut me off if I'm taking up too much time. I will not be offended. Some of the other things that we're sharing is we are doing something new and updated, I guess, something that needs to be done from the national division level, where we are establishing and doing our best to establish better communications and better, more positive cohesion, I guess, if you will, with the various different affiliates who may or may not have guide dog user groups. Maybe, if you have a division, fine. If you have a group or a committee, that's fine. We want to be able to have good discussions back and forth, so that if the national division needs any sort of assistance from a state group or division, or vice versa, we can all be on the same page, have a unified front, and work together, because ultimately that's what it's about. And then the other thing that we're doing is kind of doing along the same lines, is we're doing that with the various different training programs. Whether you are an owner trainer, or whether you represent a training program, or whether you are a guide dog user who is in the process of deciding which training program or school to go to, we want to try to be able to offer a sort of like a user-informed way that you can make an informed decision as to, help you with which school you want to go to. And we're going to be inviting other training programs to, share information, their contracts, their do's and don'ts. And it's a way that, I firmly feel that when someone gets a guide dog, they should shop around, for it, just like you shop around for a bed or a computer or whatever. You should be able to shop around in the sense that if a training program offers features that you like, then you may go with that program. If they offer features that you may not agree with or don't like, then you simply just don't go, to that training program. And so we're unbiased in that sense. And so we want to be able to establish a method, whether it's a portal or a website of some kind, that a person can have that neutral, unbiased information. And so those are really the things that we are doing at NAGU, National Association of Guide Dog Users.
Thank you so much, Raul. All I can think of is I'm shopping around for a bed for my guide dog to join me on.
There you go. And I actually just recently bought one, and I haven't put it together yet. My wife doesn't think she's going to like it, but I think it's kind of cool. It's like a little trampoline for the dog. And so it's a bed.
No. I mean like my bed that my dog thinks
for your
he
bed.
belongs
Okay.
on.
Well,
I'm shopping around for my bed. My dog already has two.
So, but yeah.
But yes, I have seen the doggy trampoline things too. Those are really cool.
So Raul, this is Paul. I just joined. I just shared the link to join the calendar. I shared it in the chat here, and I also shared it on the COAG-DO list.
Awesome. Thank you very much. Yes, I have been informed by iPhone users that if they tap on the link, it will happily prompt them, do you want to subscribe to this? And so you say yes, and there it is. And it's even local in your own time zone wherever you're at. So it works out really well.
And all the Zoom stuff actually shows up on your calendar too.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm sorry, Marianne. I want to thank you, Raul, for your leadership. I think you're bringing our guide dog community into a new era, and we continue a new time period of time. And I appreciate that leadership that you and your wife and a number of folks now, Paul Sandoval in our state particularly, are doing to kind of really look at the boundaries and look at the trajectory of what we're doing. And I think during the pandemic, there are different issues and we have to think of it that way. And I
Yes.
appreciate the leadership that you're giving, you and Marianne and the whole crowd. Thank you.
And one thing I'd like to add, that in addition to having a leader with Paul Sandoval there in Colorado, we have a lot of great leaders that Colorado has, and we actually have 2 members on the national division that are from Colorado. Jody is also on the board, and so she got elected earlier this year, and so that just shows how strong Colorado is. So I'm real proud of the state, that's for sure.
We're proud of you, Raul.
Yes, we are. We have 2 distinguished speakers coming to bring a presentation to us next on the rights and responsibilities of a guide dog user. I have bios that could go on for years, especially about Scott LaBar. I learned a million things just trying to pick a quick little something. But let me just introduce these folks to you in the shorter version of a bio. Melissa Allman is just a second, my my braille got interrupted. I apologize. Melissa Allman serves as the advocacy and government specialist for the Seeing Eye. She works on access rights for people with guide dogs in public places, housing, transportation, all the important things that we need as guide dog users. She is a guide dog user herself and a lawyer, but is not serving in a legal capacity at this point. And she has a beautiful yellow golden cross guide named Luna. She'll be talking to us from the school perspective and the national scope. Scott LaBar, who is president of the National Federation of the Blind of Colorado and also the president of the National Association of Blind Lawyers, will be speaking to us from the perspective of the National Federation of the Blind and Colorado law with respect to service dogs and such. Both have esteemed careers and have done some amazing work for us in the field. And I bring you to start with Melissa and then Scott for what they choose to share.
Thank you all. Can everyone hear me? Just want to
Yes,
make
we
sure
can.
my audio is working great. And Marianne or someone, feel free to let me know when my time is running out. I don't know how much of the time here is. I don't want to hog into Scott's time. I will just kind of go over some relevant laws and things that we as guide dog handlers need to think about in terms of our rights and responsibilities. I guarantee you that some of you will already know a lot of what I'm going to say, and to some of you it may be new. But I'm also happy, if time allows, to answer questions, and I'll provide a couple of resources at the end. So the first law that you should, and you don't have to know the nitty-gritty of these laws, and you don't even really have to remember what they're called if that's not your focus, but the first thing that you should know is that there is a federal law that gives you the right to be accompanied by your guide dog in public places. So anywhere the public is allowed to go, with a few very narrow exceptions that I will talk about in a minute, but generally if the public is allowed to go there, you are allowed to go there with your guide. Now, the Americans with Disabilities Act has a few titles to it, and we're not going to talk in great detail about some of them, and we're only going to focus on as it relates to our guide dog handler perspective tonight. But essentially, Title II of the Americans with Disabilities Act covers state and local governmental entities, And Title III covers public accommodations and commercial facilities. So things like restaurants and stores, theaters are covered by Title III, whereas Title II covers things like, I don't know, public libraries, public transportation, you know, various universities that receive funding from the state and local level, so on and so forth. So really, if essentially what you should think about, or what we need to think about as guide dog handlers, is that this law gives us these access rights in public places. All right, well, that's nice. But if we're thinking about definitions here, it's important to think about what is a service animal to begin with. All right, so first of all, think of service animals as a sort of broader umbrella under which guide dogs fall. All right, a service animal is an animal that is trained to perform a task for the benefit of a person with disability. And we, as people who are blind or have low vision, work with guide dogs, fall into the category of someone who benefits from a task that our dog performs, right? Guide dogs guide people who are blind around obstacles safely and over various terrains. I'm getting a lot of weird feedback. I don't know where that's coming from, if it's on my end or whatever, but as long as you guys can all hear me, I'll just assume that everything's fine. Are you still there? Okay.
We're
great.
good. We're not here.
Okay.
We're not hearing
Awesome.
any distortion. You're going good.
Okay, great. So anyway, so a guide dog is a service animal. All right. So that's something that I think most of us do know. But when you go into a public place, first of all, you're supposed to be allowed in. And the other thing that comes up a lot, of course, is how much information are people entitled to about you and your dog? Well, if your disability is not readily apparent, it's not known or obvious, it's not observable, then you can be asked two questions, which are, is this a service animal needed because of a disability, and what task is it trained to perform? However, in our case, essentially what the regulations say is that if they use guide dog as one of the several examples of situations where the disability and the need for the service animal should be obvious enough that those questions should not be necessary. Now, if someone asks me, if someone happens to really not know or really not understand what a guide dog does and what its harness is for and so on and so forth, and they see Luna and I, and we're coming into a place, and they ask me the two questions, am I going to bite their face off? No. Sorry to use the biting reference, but you know, of course, I'm just going to tell them what she does. But I may also mention that guide dogs are the type of animal where it should be pretty obvious. And although I'm happy to explain, someone else may not be. So, you know, as long as it's obvious that I'm working her, the question shouldn't be needed. All right. So another thing that is important for us to remember is that not only do we have the right to be there, but we have the right to equal treatment. What does that mean? It means that if no one else is being charged any fees or deposits to be in a place, so for example, you go to a hotel, you shouldn't be charged a fee or a deposit of any kind for having your dog there. You should not be asked to show an ID for your dog. That is not something that the law allows, despite the proliferation of certificates and registrations and things of that nature online. Incidentally, HUD has asked the Department of Housing and Urban Development has asked the Federal Trade Commission to look into issues with sort of fake service animal registrations and the companies that are selling them online and representing them as to be mandated by law. But anyway, ID is not something that we should have to show. Now, can we choose to? Sure. If our school has issued us an ID and we choose to show it because You know, I am a graduate of the Seeing Eye, and I have heard some graduates say, I'm happy to show my ID when I go somewhere because I'm proud to be a graduate of the Seeing Eye. Well, that's wonderful. You can. Do you want to be asked for it every single time you go into a store or a bank or the dry cleaners or wherever? That is burdensome, and that's why the law doesn't require us to do that. Okay, so another sort of thing that can come up when people ask what is differential or more burdensome or unequal treatment. Well, you know, maybe you go to a restaurant and you're told that you have to sit way far away from everyone else at that table. I don't know, maybe near the restrooms or near the kitchen or near somewhere that you would never want to sit because you have your guide dog and someone might be allergic to your dog or somebody doesn't like dogs. That's unequal treatment. Okay, so we should not be isolated or put in a situation that we would not be put in all if we did not have our guide with us. Okay, so that's something that we have a right to. We have a right, not only do we have a right to get in, but we also have a right to be treated equally when we're there. All right. Fear of dogs, allergies are not excuses for denying us access. But there are some things that are reasons why we could be denied access. And that's something, or asked to leave. And that's something that's the sort of rights and responsibilities. That's the responsibilities part of that equation. We do have rights, but when we're in a place, we're required to maintain control over our dog at all times. If our dog gets out of control and we cannot effectively get it under control, we can be asked to remove our dog, but it's important that it be made known that we're allowed to come back and partake of the goods and services without our dog. But we can be asked, our dogs can be excluded from a public place if they are misbehaving, and we can't, they shouldn't be misbehaving at all, but if they are and we can't get it under control immediately, that could be grounds for asking us to leave. Okay. Another situation that could come up, there are some limited exceptions where the presence of our dog might cause a fundamental alteration of the programs or services that an entity provides. Well, what does that mean? What that essentially means is if our dog being there it causes some sort of situation that fundamentally alters things or poses some sort of a threat, then we could be asked to remove our dog. So let's take a couple of examples of that. Let's say we want to go to a zoo, but if we take our dog into certain areas, the presence of our dog could be the predator or prey of the animals that are in that part of the zoo and cause agitation, either, you know, on the part of our dog or on the part of those animals. We can be asked to not bring our dog into that area, but can they kick us out of the cafe? No. So another example is, this comes up a lot and has come up a couple times during this pandemic, is, you know, we can bring our dogs to restaurant buffets and salad bars, provided our dogs are under control. But if we are doing the food preparation, our dogs can be excluded from certain areas where the actual food prep is taking place. Like if we're working in the kitchen or something, you know, maybe we have to crate our dog in another space. Swimming pools, you can't bring your dog in the water because of sanitation related issues. There are some exceptions. Oh, and another example is maybe a sterile area in a hospital or an operating room. So for example, yes, you should be allowed to bring your dog to the waiting room, maybe to the patient exam room. Maybe you're there for yourself, or maybe you're there for a friend or a spouse or a child. But if it's a sterile area, such as an operating room, maybe a burn unit, maybe the oncology unit, where you would have to wear a mask or a gown, I'm not talking COVID masks, I'm talking just because you're back there, then that's a situation where they may be able to exclude our service animal. Okay. Mosques, religious institutions such as mosques, temples, churches, they're not covered by the ADA. and people are allowed in those settings to exclude our guides, exclude service animals. Understand that it's important for us to understand that our state laws may offer greater protections than the federal law does. So the ADA is a civil law, and it is there to protect us from discrimination. There are a lot more aspects to the ADA than things related to service animals. It's a very extensive law. But with respect to this topic, know that your state law may offer protections that are greater than the ADA, and it also may make access denial a crime, and maybe a misdemeanor in a lot of states. There are quite a few states, I believe 37 states right now, that do make it a criminal offense to deny access to someone with a service animal. So one of the things I will leave you with, because I'm going to have to skip over to fit things in, but as far as the ADA is concerned in public places, it covers all the things I mentioned. That also includes ride share and public transportation. One thing I will leave you with is that it does not cover emotional support animals, okay? There may be some state laws that do, but when we're talking about the federal law, the Americans with Disabilities Act does not require someone to allow an emotional support animal in, only task-trained service animals. Now, on public transportation, which is covered by Title II, this is just a weird little thing to throw at you. The service animal does not necessarily have to be a dog, but it has to be task trained. The Department of Transportation has not fully aligned its regulations with those implemented by the Department of Justice, which is why that weird thing exists. Okay, excuse me. One thing I want to make sure that I say is that COVID has not changed our rights as guide dog handlers. There are CDC guidelines that make it clear that the ADA has not gone anywhere, and it actually says in the CDC guidelines that service animals that there's no evidence that they transmit COVID to people. And I'm going to share with you some information about where you can find those guidelines at the end. One thing I will say about housing is that emotional support animals are covered in the housing context. The umbrella is a little broader there. Assistance animal is the term that is generally used in the housing context, and it encompasses both task-trained traditional animals as well as emotional support animals, which don't have to be task-trained. So under the ADA, a service animal, for the most part, is a dog, unless it's a miniature horse, or unless you're talking about that little kind of weird situation with public transportation, where it doesn't have to be a dog. But in housing, it can be emotional support animals are allowed, and they don't have to be dogs. One of the things that has happened this year is HUD, the Department of Housing and Urban Development, has issued some new guidance for housing providers covered by the Fair Housing Act, which is the federal law that applies in this case. That guidance is fantastic, because what it does is it creates a flow chart and clarifies when housing providers can ask for documentation and what they can ask for from a person with a disability that is requesting permission to have a service animal or an assistance animal, to use the broader term, in housing. So what that guidance has done, and in that flow chart, what it has done is made it clear that in situations where the animal is a task-trained service animal that's protected under the ADA, that really the least restrictive standard should be used, and no documentation should be requested. And really, in a situation where it's obvious what the animal is doing, there shouldn't be any inquiry. So for example, really all you should have to do is let a landlord know that you have a guide and you need them to waive their no pets policy and allow you to move in with your guide. And that they shouldn't be charging you any fees or deposits. And that's all. That's really best practice, really, is to still ask for that accommodation. Let them know you need that accommodation, but really there should be very limited circumstances in which, if it's a guide, you should be getting any pushback. This
Melissa,
guidance. Can
I stop you there?
Yes. Yeah.
I was like, if I don't speak up, I won't get a word in. But yes. I appreciate you letting me stop you right there. Let Scott get in here for some words, and then if we've got a couple of minutes, we can open up for some last resources and questions and answers, because I know you wanted to share some at the end.
Great. Sorry,
Thank you
Scott.
so much. You're both good. I'm keeping track of some time. Scott, do we have you?
Scott Labar.
I saw his name up here earlier.
I heard him. I heard him say his name. Was that?
Yeah,
that
I did
him?
too. That's
Scott. If you are here, you are muted.
He is here.
All right. Can you hear me?
There you go.
Hey.
Thank you.
I actually had I had three things going on here. I've had several more than that, but I was just talking to Jessica Beecham about the opening ceremonies, which they
it's
just
not canceled, is it?
No, but they
Okay.
just literally just put the wrap on it, and Curtis Chong over there was getting a little nervous because he hadn't gotten the audio yet. So that's all settled. That's good news. I also had the parents meeting up at the same time, and then the Secretary of State's office was calling me. So it's been kind of crazy here. Melissa, I heard most of what you were talking about, and you pretty much covered the waterfront. And so you made it really easy for me. Thank you so much. And in the interest of time, I guess what I would add is that Colorado is one of those 37 states that you mentioned that does make it a violation of a crime. It's a crime to deny somebody the right to use their service animal in public places. It's a misdemeanor. So it's not like it's a felony or anything, but it is indeed not only a civil violation, but a criminal violation. We have a really good resource in terms of what the laws specifically are here in Colorado. Disability Rights Colorado has a really nice page about all the rights regarding service versus assistance animals. And as you were explaining, Melissa, in Colorado law, there is a major distinction between the two, particularly with respect to emotional support animals. Those obviously, people have the right to have those animals in housing, but not necessarily the right to take them into public places such as restaurants and the like. But what I also wanted to do is talk about a little bit different area of the law that has been litigated by the National Federation of the Blind over the last 5 years, and that has to do with the issue of service animals and ride share companies.
Good. Yay.
Yeah. And several years ago, when Uber and Lyft started really becoming popular and prolific, of course, those of us in the Federation who use dogs, Kevin and Jessica and Maureen and Marianne and all our friends who use dogs wanted to also use rideshare services. Well, just as we've experienced many times over the years with taxi cabs, drivers started refusing rides to those who were using service animals with all the same types of excuses. And I that's pretty much what I believe them to be. But, I'm allergic to dogs. I religiously object to dogs, whatever the case may be. Dogs, are dirty, and so on and so forth. We got involved. In particular, we sued Uber. And the first defense that Uber made was that they were not covered by the Americans with Disabilities Act. And the argument that they made is that they were really not a transportation provider, that they weren't really offering rides, they weren't providing the facilities to give you a ride. All they were was, they call themselves a transportation network company. Basically they said all they did was link you with a driver close to you. That's all they did. And so we made the argument that they in fact were a public accommodation under Title III of the Americans with Disabilities Act, and we won that argument. They did not succeed in their motion to dismiss. When they failed to get the case dismissed, then they entered into very serious settlement negotiations with us, and it wound up in a settlement that provided some pretty concrete terms and pretty solid mechanisms we could use to protect our rights to use Uber. For example, drivers were supposed to be, essentially taken off the platform, the Uber platform, if they denied somebody a ride because they denied their service animal and so on. All of that was great and worked, I think, pretty effectively. We made sure we had a process whereby people could file complaints and we would get them to Uber. And that was all under a settlement agreement. Well, that settlement agreement has expired. And we are in negotiations again with Uber going forward because not all the problems have gone away. The same can be said with respect to Lyft. We didn't have to sue them in federal court, but we did work out an agreement. And we continue to work at a high level with these companies because despite our best efforts, and I think mostly the best efforts of Uber and Lyft, there are a lot of drivers still who refuse to take blind people with service animals because of their various beliefs or feelings about dogs, and they don't really understand the law and understand how well trained 99% of the service animals are, et cetera, et cetera. So it continues to be an area that we're working in. That's, it's not perfect. I get that. I understand that. But I think the situation is a lot better than it used to be. Regardless, where we need help from all of you is if you continue to have any kinds of problems, we need to hear about it. We, through our NFB of Colorado assistance line, have a way for you to report those problems. Please call 303-778-1130, extension 219, and let us know what happened. And we can get a form filled out and get the information to our national office and to the lawyers specifically working on these matters. Also, you can email assistance@nfbco.org. So those were some of the other specifics I wanted to mention, Marianne. And in the interest of time, I'll stop there and we'll see if there are any questions for Melissa and myself.
Thank you so much, Scott. I appreciate the updates and the brevity both. You are amazing as a leader. I appreciate it. Does anyone have questions for Melissa or Scott before we go into the kind of resource sharing that wraps up the meeting?
This is Renee. I just have a quick question. And this is mainly regarding emotional support animals. To what extent can an HOA, not the landlord, but an HOA request a letter stating what the emotional support animal is and wanting specifics?
So what I will say is that, and the HOA is still considered, they're still covered by the Fair Housing Act. And I would refer you to the guidance that I referenced, which is the HUD and Department of Justice guidance. It has an excellent outline of what can be asked for. They are allowed. This is a situation where the disability is not known and obvious, so the inquiry can proceed beyond where it would go if it was a traditional task trained service animal and move into, you know, what is this proof that the disability exists, and the need for the animal, the nexus, the connection between the disability and the need for the animal, which would need to be documented by an appropriate individual under those circumstances. So that guidance lays it out very well. And I think the key thing to remember is that an interactive process has to take place. The housing provider, and in this case being the HOA, is entitled to as much information as they need in order to evaluate the request. No less, no more. So as far as where you can find that, and I'm not, you know, I work for the Seeing Eye, but I'm also telling you this because it's an easy place to get to these resources. We've created a portfolio of resources that is publicly available. If you go to seeingeye.org/access, you will find our public access page there that talks about service animals in public places, but it also has links to our housing page, our ground transportation, our air travel page, and on the housing page, there is a link to that updated HUD guidance that I would recommend that you check out.
And I would add on top of that, the Disability Rights Colorado page, which gives you the Colorado spin on all of this.
That's awesome. That's good too, because again, the Colorado law probably has some protections that, and some nuances that, you know, the Fair Housing Act doesn't have.
So we can put together, first of all, this is Kevin Worley, and you guys have your page is wonderful. What you guys have is one of the best going in terms of the resources for guide dogs. All the schools have something, but I really like the way yours is set up, and I'm sure you had a great deal to do with that. We need to make sure we get that data circulated, as well as is it the Disability Rights Coalition, Scott?
Colorado, Disability Rights Colorado. It's the protection and advocacy agency for the state of Colorado.
All right.
And that also brings the question, is anyone, since Raul and Stacy, I believe, are still up here, is anyone working on the NAGDO app?
Yeah, what happened to that?
You know?
It ran away.
Hi there. Okay. Well, thank you for asking. And this is fess up time.
It's on the burner.
It's on the burner, and I dropped the ball. So I'm not going to sugarcoat it. I dropped the ball. Part of that is when I got elected as president, you know, of course, as others on here may or may not know, there is a lot of changeover of data from one president to the next. And in many cases, it's a very smooth and easy data process, but in some cases, different people have a different way of organizing stuff. And so the previous president had his way that worked for him. I've got my way that works for me. And somewhere along the way, his way and my way did not translate right. And so we lost access to the developer account. And what that basically means is that until we gain access to that, which is in the process, I'm hoping to have that done in the next couple of weeks. The app does not show up in the App Store. So I'm hoping to have that fixed sooner than later for both Apple side and Google side, because it's not available right now on both platforms, on either platform, I should say.
When that comes back, will you have kind of access to those disability resource links as well? And
yes.
Awesome.
Yep.
Another thing I would say while we're talking about resources is we also have on our page, we have the state laws concerning interference with service animals. So guide dog protection, the laws that protect you against interference with your guide when you're out working. Interestingly, Scott, tell me if I'm understanding this correctly, but when I took a peek at the Colorado law where it makes it a crime to deny access, that is the part of the law that also talks about interference, and which I think is great. Some states have it organized in different ways. If you go to seeingeyeorg/protect, we have the guide dog interference related information there. And I did not get a chance to talk about air travel, and I'm sorry about that. I guess I talked too slow on other points. But if you want to look at what's going on in terms of, we are still waiting for the Department of Transportation to get around to issuing the final service animal regulations. But if anyone wants to see our comment on the proposed regulations, the notice of proposed rulemaking, it's at seeingeye.org/DOT. And a lot of other guide dog schools and organizations and individuals made extremely insightful comments on that. And you can take a look at the docket. We've got a link to the docket up there as well. But essentially the law has remained the same. We're just waiting, we're just waiting for them to do something.
And don't hold your breath too hard.
Oh, my breath is, I'm just, I'm breathing in and out, Scott. Believe me.
Little T-touch going on right now.
There you go. Little circles on your tummy. Little
I think we've got time for circles on our tummy while we wait for DOT.
Does anyone else have any other quick questions before we get to any other final resources?
I have a question. This is Sandy.
Go ahead, Sandy.
From Pueblo. Yay!
Yeah. See, Kevin, you messed me up. I can't remember what I was going to say.
I'm sorry.
So what I have a question about service animals, not necessarily guides in particular, but does everybody have to? Do all stores have to go by, the guidelines of whether they can let a service animal in, or can they decide to let it in on their, we'll let the dogs in the store.
You mean like pets or emotional supports and other dogs that?
Well, like other service animals, like here's an example for you. I've gone into the grocery store, and somebody else has a dog in there, which is in the basket, which I don't believe they're allowed to be in a basket either. I know California law, it's illegal, or it used to be. But anyway, and I would go and talk to somebody, and unfortunately, the only person I could talk to about that was a manager. And they told me that it's up to the manager's discretion whether he's going to let that dog in the store or not.
Okay. So
whether it's a service animal or not.
All right. So yes, remember, we're talking about rights and responsibilities under the law. Just because we have rights doesn't mean we have to exercise them, right? We have the choice whether to exercise a right that we have. And the same is true for public entities, public accommodations covered by the ADA. They don't have to let anything in unless it's a service animal. But if they want to let an animal in, right, because they allow pets or because they don't want to ask any questions, they have the right to do that. The Department of Justice regulations concerning service animals do talk about actually what you're saying, which is that service animals are not supposed to be in the shopping carts. They're supposed to be where they need to be performing their task, period. But if that store either doesn't know their rights, they're terrified because they don't want to get sued, or they know them, but they're choosing not to exercise that right, that's something they can do. Now, if it comes down though to your guide's safety, and then you're talking then about those state laws that protect that concerning interference, or perhaps, that comes into play, then the question is, do you call the police? Do you let the store manager know this dog is interfering with my dog? That is potentially a criminal offense, and I'm going to call the police if you don't ask them to remove the dog. You've then made your position.
Okay.
If it's not doing anything to your dog, remember, I always say it comes down to the B word. And in this case, the B word is behavior. So if you don't like that dog is there, but you have no way of really knowing whether it's a service animal and it's not interfering in any way with your guide, you may want to think about whether or not it's appropriate, and that is your decision, to get involved in that.
Yeah, usually the only time I know there's another dog around is if it's barking at my dog. That's the only way I know it's there.
Well, then you're dealing with interference.
Mm-hmm. Okay, I never thought about that as being interference, but that makes sense.
If it's interfering with your dog's ability to work, then it's interference.
Yeah, that's true. Okay, thanks.
No problem.
So Mary Ann, this is Kevin, and before folks get away, I don't know how close we are to being end, but
Well, that's what I was about to do.
all right. Well, make your announcements because I'll have a couple before people run off. People, please don't run off. Go ahead, Mary Ann.
I was just going to say thank you to both of our presenters today for some amazing knowledge sharing and soothing, stress relieving, and so on, and education. I apologize, 3. I can't count today, which is going to be a problem in another hour or so during the auction, but we'll deal with it. But thank you all for coming and bringing us some great material today. Thank you to everybody for attending. Before we go, there is a link. There are links in the chat for the NAGDU calendar. I encourage everyone to subscribe there. There's also a link for our COAGDU to join our COAGDU. Please think about that. Also, our COAGDU meets every 3rd Sunday of the month at 4 p.m. We do have a Zoom meeting. It is on the NAGDU calendar, but we also post it out to COAGDU. We have our own listserv, but it does also, we will also be posting it to Colorado Talk just to make sure we catch everybody for a while. And thank all of you for coming. Thanks to the committee, Libby and Gail for helping me find some great people, and Melissa Smith for some great recommendations. And just to close us out and bring everything to a conclusion, I'll give you back Kevin Worley.
Now
Kevin?
he's gone.
It can't be that I gave all the announcements he wanted to give, but I will say that until Kevin comes back to us, our main convention opening ceremonies will be starting in less than an hour at 5:30. I'm sure it will start promptly. I've already heard some things about some clips, and I know that this is going to be absolutely amazing for anybody who is. You're back.
I'm sorry. I made it. I'm running in from the other room, just like it would be, if we were at the hotel. I got caught outside.
Right, you're running. Well, wait 2 seconds then. Wait 2 seconds, because we're talking opening ceremonies are coming up very shortly. Absolutely amazing. If you want to stream it on YouTube, please do that. It's going to be amazing. Things are already in stereo. Hang out on your PCs, and remember, if you want door prizes and such, be someplace where you can raise your hand. And if you're going to buy fabulous auction things, which everybody can buy fabulous auction things because we didn't have to pay for hotels this year, so we all have just a little more money.
Yeah, auction's going to be part of tonight, as well as door prizes. Here, let me talk to the substance just a second. This was a great seminar, and I hope many of you on this call will become involved with us in the Colorado Association of Guide Dog Users. We're right in the transition, in a place where we're going to be doing some dynamic things. We're going to build on what Deshaun and what Melissa and Diane and so many people did. We're to a point where, how do we deal with guide dogs in pandemic? What will technology be for guide dog users and service handlers? What's that going to look like? And how do we shape our future as a dog handling community with the schools? Lots going on. So be a part of who we are. Thank you all very much for coming. Mary Ann, fabulous job. See you all in less than an hour.
Thanks, everybody.
Hey, Paul.
Yes, sir.
I wonder if we can figure out where that weird hissing is coming from.
What hissing?
I was hearing it when Marianne was talking.
Maybe it was from her.
Because it's gone now.
Yeah, you're right. I don't hear it now.
I wasn't sure if it was Marianne
It's
or
not you. It's not you for sure.
Well, no, I didn't know if it was Marianne or
Are
if I
you-
didn't know it was
Are
one
you
of the other
getting it
presenters.
now?
Yep, it's you.
There it is.
Yeah.
Okay, then I will trade microphones.
Yeah, you're hissing. I mean, I didn't know you were
like
that
a
bad.
snake. Whoa.
Yeah.
That's
I
nasty.
love
I
your
will.
microphone. I love your audio quality on that mic exactly where you are. It's just I don't like the hiss.
Let me.
Sounds like
They're
we're listening
dropping
to
like
you. There's
flies.
an
Look at them
FM.
all go. See the numbers go down, down,
Woohoo!
down.
Do you
down.
still have me?
I have you. I mean, do we have hiss? Is that what you're asking?
Both.
I can't.
Yes.
I have you.
There's
but-
hiss.
yeah.
Okay. Let me